Hey, what's going on, Ramley? Welcome to the Rams Skinny here with my guy Skinny T. I'm Ryan Dyrud. Rams drop a tough one, 19-16, a real barn burner, if you will. I think a good game in terms of it was entertaining for maybe a low score, but definitely some things that we didn't want to see happen, and we thought we were going to do differently when we were previewing this article or previewing this game. But hey, we're excited to be joined by all of you, talk about it live for a little bit, vent about it, and kind of see what went wrong and what can be improved upon. But before even that, Skinny T, what's up, brother? How you doing on this? It's not that late, but for you, it's like 8:30, so it's like what 12:30 for you. And what are you in dog years?
It's a school night. I like to get in bed early, wake up nice and refreshed before work and all that good stuff. Yeah, I'm more of a morning guy than a late night guy, but we got Monday night football, so here I am.
Yep.
I got that extra shot of caffeine kind of late in the day to pep me up and keep me ready to go. And yeah, I mean, our predictions for this game looked a little bit different. I think, and I still think this was a game that the Rams should have kind of taken away with, kind of
Hmm.
ran away with a little bit more. But we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, I think ultimately this is one of those games that when we were talking about this season, that they're going to have to steal some, run through the legs of a couple of giants, as the phrase go. This was one that they should have gotten, just because of where Joe Burrow was, where this Bengals team was. But they let this one slip through.
Yeah. All right. Can you see me? I don't know. I feel like my internet dropped out there, but can you
He
hear me?
froze up a little bit, but yeah, you're back.
Okay. Well, yeah. It's unfortunate when I think when you see a quarterback of Joe Burrow's caliber, the way he's played this season, and then you get him kind of hobbled with the calf injury and all the hype and the improvement we saw from this team, especially how they played against San Francisco and kind of going into that and being relatively healthy, obviously missing, your stalwart in Cooper Cup, but other than that, looking pretty good. And even the way they started this game, and then we'll just start with that, Skinny T. Like, I mean, that first drive, and let's be honest, they got robbed in that call. Like, I don't think Tutu Atwell's out on that by any means. That should have been a touchdown. Whether that changed the game or not, that you got to get over that. It's the very beginning of the game. But, you have that drive of not just ingenuity from Sean McVay, but the play calling was awesome. The differences in kind of who they were targeting and who was getting the ball in their hands. Like, it was just the perfect storm of offensive prowess on that first drive. And then we just didn't really see that the rest of the game. And it was one of those where we've talked about this a lot, and I don't want to get straight to kind of the negatives, but we've talked about Coach McVay and how great he is, and rightfully so. But we've talked so many times, and I've pounded the table for it, just like doesn't want to run the football for whatever means, wants to air it out over and over again. And when you start seeing a Bengals defense that is teeing off on this offensive line, and up to this point, this offensive line has really stood the test and played phenomenally. But tonight, they just really weren't able to withstand this pass rush, from the Bengals. And yet you still just keep dropping back and slinging the ball around instead of trying to run the football. That to me is what's mind boggling about this. And I'm not saying it would have necessarily won the game if they ran more, but you cannot have your running back run the ball 10 times. I'm a broken record, Skinny T. I'm a broken record. Top me down for the ledge. Like, tell me you can win games running the ball 10 times, but I don't think you can.
Yeah, no, and it's the downfall fall of Sean McVay. And I'll say on the flip side of that is I always go back to this statistics that was touted about Sean McVay early on in his career, up through the first, I don't know, 4 years of his career. Going into halftime, when he had a lead, he won the game every time.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is if you flip that statistic on the other side, if he goes in tied or losing, that's when he's losing those games. And that's when we're not seeing adjustments being made. You're not seeing, you know, against the 49ers, I think both you and I thought they were punching the 49ers in the mouth with the
Yeah.
run game. They just kind of stuck with it in the first half. They stuck with it and they kept with it, and they were efficient and they were moving the ball. Just death by a thousand paper cuts, just moving the ball down the field, making it happen. And so on one side, you lose all these games when you're losing at halftime, but he's winning. So we've seen it be successful where he comes out guns blazing, and then when he gets Stafford, it's working even more. But still, it stalls out, and he just does not have that kind of um, second gear. He just wants to go for haymakers when you need to do a few combinations. You need to, work the body a bit for a round. Like you need to
Mhm.
you need to have a different game plan when haymakers are just not landing it. And I mean, just another example of that today. And you know, I thought coming into the season, a big reason that he brought in LaFleur as the offensive coordinator was to kind of tie in that physicality of the 49ers run game, which was LaFleur's breeding ground. And we've seen it in fits and starts. We saw it in the first game for sure. Um,
Yep.
but when the chips are down, you got to stick with that game plan. You know, you got to work the body and then throw a haymaker and see what that gets you. And he just wants to throw the haymakers, and he's got the guy that can do it with Stafford, Tutu Atwell. We saw Van Jefferson make a big play. We saw Puka Nakua make a big play today. And but when they were really, really successful is when Puka Nakua was just catching those 6-yard slants, 6-yard dig route, just making it happen. And
Yep.
that's where they lost it with the physicality of this game.
Yeah, and I don't want to bore people and just be old school and talk about the run and whatnot, but it just it drives me crazy a bit. And I've said many times, like I'm not going to pretend to be smarter than these coaches because I'm absolutely not. But I just during this game, no, I'm not. I'm definitely not. But during this game, I was watching the entire game, obviously. But we recorded our Salute the Troy podcast. We cover the Trojans, obviously, here on the LA Football Network. And when you look at the Trojans game against Arizona State, and there were issues in that game or whatever, but the run game was not one of them, and they were able to run the ball at will. Yet Lincoln Riley, as great as an offensive mind as he is, only ran the ball from his two running backs 17 times. Marshawn Lloyd ran at 14. Austin Jones ran at 17. They averaged 100 or not average. They gained about 190 yards on the ground between the two of them on 17 carries. That's all they did. And the game was a close game throughout it. And you see this with Sean McVay, where you have a running back that is either being efficient or even if not efficient, but just is able to wear the defense down and force the physicality. And I don't know what it is about these, and I hate generalizing, but about some of these great offensive minds that it's almost like a shot to their ego to run the football. And they just want to air it out and show off the shiny toys and these not even trick plays, but just show off like these great route combinations and how you run a dig route with a post route overcoming, and then you have a comeback and all this stuff. And sometimes you just need that smash mouth football to complement that. And then you can really show that off even more, because if you run the ball 25 times, then it's going to open the passing game. Like, it's the most common sense thing in football. And even if you aren't getting efficient yards out of it, like I've said this many times, Skinny, and I know I'll say it again, it's a broken record. If you're on the ball 25 to 30 times, and even if you're getting 2 yards a carry, which, 3 times is going to be short of a first down, but doing that enough through 4 quarters is going to do 2 things for you. It's going to wear the defense down because it forces them to be physical and tackle, where passing plays, not every play forces anything. I mean, an incomplete pass, no physicality. Runner runs out of bounds on a short pass, no physicality. A run, no matter what, forces physicality. So you're going to wear down a defense. And number 2, it's going to keep the defense honest to either keep a tighter box, whether that's 6 to 8 men, or not keep a tight box. And then guess what? Your running game is going to open up more and going to be more efficient. And so when you run the ball with your lead back 10 times in a game that you were either leading or down by 3, you're just playing into what the defense wants you to do. And it's not allowing you to open things up. And I thought the receivers played well. I thought Stafford played well. I thought the line played okay. They didn't play they did the first 2 games, but when the defense knows they can just pin their ears back and rush the QB every single play, you have to start blaming the play calling and not necessarily the players. And so that's my biggest frustration yet again, is just why is the run being abandoned so early in these games and not utilized?
Yeah, you made me think of 3 things, and I want to mention them all. One, and I'm going to evoke a name that's a hot topic right now. Brandon Staley, who is the analytics kind of guy, the guy who thinks through the numbers. He's got somebody in his ear pumping in, what are my probabilities on this 4th down call? Different conversation, but he even says the run game is what keeps the defense honest. And that's what you have to do. You have to keep them guessing, which McVay has never really been that good at since maybe 17, 18. And then even then we say the Super Bowl where Belichick does what he does. So that's one thing. 2, the Bengals only ran it 19 times themselves, but that was enough to where they were able to find some seams, find some, gaps that they just were able to pick up some big yardage, and I think they ended Mixon ended with something like 3.9 yards per carry, nothing impressive.
3.4, yeah.
3.0, yeah. So I think,
hey, but three of those is a first down. 3.4 yard runs is the first down.
Yeah. So it's and I can't remember what the third thing I wanted to bring up was, but it's truly just frustrating because it's complementary. It all works together. It's 11 guys working against 11 guys, and how do you find the mismatches? And McVay shows what he wants to do. Here's the third thing. This game was never out of control. This game, like, they were never actually really playing from behind. It was always within grasp. It was a one touchdown game all the way through up until the very last quarter. The big turning point, I would say, was that the injury to Alaric Jackson, where he was declared out at a certain point in the game. And then the pressure just started coming through. Trey Hendrickson, per Pro Football Reference, had 2 pressures, and he comes away from this game with, I think, 4 sacks. Stafford had just 1 sack coming into this game. I think 6 sacks coming out of this game. And so, obviously that injury played big into this, but that's just more reason that you need to figure out another way to get the ball down the field.
Yeah, and I don't want to keep harping on it, but I think that's the point of conversation, is when you're a absolute magician play caller and an absolute genius offensive mind, and Sean McVay is that. And Sean McVay is a phenomenal head coach. I think he's for sure top 5. We could argue top 3 in the NFL. He's built a culture. He knows offenses. He knows how to read defenses and all this. But for whatever reason, he just doesn't want to run the football. And in week 1, they ran it, what was it, 37 times between Kyren and Cam Akers, I believe. It was 22 for Cam and like 15 for, I'm terrible at math, but I feel like that's 37. So 37 times. They dropped that down against San Francisco significantly and then drop it down even more tonight. And so I just don't get it. Like, you got to run the football. And if I go ahead, I feel like you're going to say something.
Well, what's frustrating about it is why do you stop doing it if it's working? That's the part I don't understand. Like, it was working in Seattle the whole game, I think, and then
even when it wasn't efficient. Even when it wasn't efficient, it was working. Cam Akers had 1.3 yards per carry, but it was keeping the defense honest so then they could hit Puka Nacua for those 15, 20-yard gashes. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. So 40 rushes all together against Seattle. I know you like to discount 15 and 22.
We don't count the Stafford runs. We don't count the Stafford runs. Those are mistakes.
Yeah, 15 and 22 for Kyron and Cam in that game. And, thinking about Cam and just kind of like getting, having a really good, solid rookie season, rushing for something like 800 yards, um, and then just kind of falling in the doghouse. Even after, late last season, having really solid games, getting into the doghouse, his McVay's prejudice against the run is working against himself, and it's working
Mhm.
against his backs as well because any athlete works on some sort of amount of repetition and kind of flow and kind of back and forth and kind of like I'm a big Twins fan, and we have this great player Byron Buxton. He gets hurt constantly, but he's a great fielder, great hitter, and one of the they moved him to the DH this year, and one of his struggles is he has always played the field and batted, and he found it hard to do one without the other, where he could
Mhm.
stop thinking about the pitcher, but he's sitting in the dugout. I don't know what it all boils down to, but I'm like, we hear like we see quarterbacks get hot when they find a rhythm.
Yep.
There's just a flow and a rhythm. Drummers talk about it too, where they just find the pocket and they're just in the pocket the whole time.
Yep.
There's just something human about this kind of like, you know, kind of a rhythm and that's why I go to bed all the time early. I got a rhythm to my day.
There you
So
go.
anyway, it works against his own backs. It works against his own best interest.
Yeah.
It's like we got to keep Kyron kind of in the game, engaged, thinking about rushing lanes and not just pass protection or all of these things. It's just it's very frustrating because we're seeing other offenses really integrate it and integrate it really well. San Francisco being one of them. We're seeing it with
Mhm.
Miami. Um, Philadelphia does a really nice job with their running game, utilizing both quarterback and running back. But nonetheless, yeah, I mean, I would I think that McVay's a top five coach because he's a great offensive mind and he's also a great CEO kind of thinker. And he loves his players, he loves this organization. He does such a great job of creating the great vibes and all of that. But if you let it fall apart in the second half, let's say, or when the game is close, you know, it's I that if every coach is flawed, and this is his flaw, I guess I would say. And
Yeah.
I just hope that the game is not passing him by because as the two high safety Fangio Staley defenses are kind of containing quarterbacks like Stafford, Russell Wilson, guys like that kind of lived on being able to drop a pass in 50 yards down the field. Um, you got to do things like hit Puka Nakua on a 8-yard slant, pick up
Mhm.
13 yards, and you have to be able to run the ball and trust that you're doing the right thing. And he just doesn't do that.
Well, and I think, and I don't want this just to turn into a whole negative thing because it was a 3-point loss. It's unfortunate, but if before the season started, I think everyone would have picked the Rams to lose this game. And I think they played valiantly. I think what's frustrating is I think they should have won this game based on how well the defense played. But I think what is most frustrating when you, for me, and it boils down to the run game. Obviously, we've been harping on now for 20 minutes, but his
Wow.
defense His defense, right? Sean McVay's the head coach. Yes, he's the offensive mind, but he's the head coach. Raheem Morris runs the defense. His own defense is basically begging the offense to run and take the checkdowns, right? Like that's the Rams offense. Everyone hates it. The whole play soft, play this. But we've talked many times, like we're in support of Raheem Morris. I mean, I think the defense plays well. We look at the talent they have, and look at they just held Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon to 19 points. The defense played phenomenal tonight. Your own defense that you see every week in practice, and that is basically the staple in the NFL today, as you alluded to with the Vic Fangio, Brandon Staley scheme, and Raheem Morris runs kind of a variation of that. You see it every day in practice. So why then are you going to just try to air it out the whole time and not run the football, which the defense that you're playing against wants you to do. That is, I think, the frustration is like, yes, Sean McVay is an offensive guru in a mind, but he knows this. It's almost like he's trying to buck the trend and say, no, I can beat this. But sometimes it's like, you don't got to beat it like that. Just beat it the way they're giving it to you. Play the offense the way the defense is asking you to play it. And guess what? You might have the horses to beat it.
Are you a Ghostbusters fan by any chance?
I am. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I always think of this, and it doesn't necessarily work exactly, but it works. It plays through my head constantly when this happens. When a team dares you to run the ball, run the ball. And the Ghostbusters reference is, if somebody asks you if you're a god, you say yes. So
Nice.
the team just run. Yeah, if a team is daring you to run the ball, you run the ball and see what happens. And keep, we don't need to harp on it any longer. As well as the defense has played, and they're playing above their ability, a bunch of guys out there, that have earned their job in this NFL, probably wouldn't have a spot on a lot of rosters, but are just making their name out there. They are the liability on this team. They're playing above their level, but they're not one of the better defenses in the league. So keeping owning the time of possession in the game is super important to the defense. Just like if you're playing against Patrick Mahomes, you don't want to give that ball back to him. You don't want Joe Burrow having to go out there and make plays. They've got Joe Burrow, they got Jamar Chase, they got T Higgins, they got Boyd out there. All these guys are playmakers. You don't want to give them that opportunity to do that with this defense. All respect to this defense. I think they're doing a great job, but I mean, you look at that Ahkello Witherspoon interception. It's like, you got to get points there.
Yeah,
and I think we haven't talked about third downs. We haven't talked about red zone. But hats off to Lou Anarumo for three things. Those two things, they shut them down on third down, which they had a second best success rate coming into this game again in third down. Over 65% in third down they were successful in. Oddly enough, they were successful on 100% of the runs on third down. But there's a statistical thing in there we won't get into. Red zone, they were the number one team in scoring touchdowns when they were in the red zone. 83% of the time that they went in the red zone, they scored a touchdown. Also, Puka Nacua coming back to earth, 5 catches, 8 targets. They were able to really corral him. Lou Anarumo, if you don't know that name yet, he should be a head coach at some point in the future. He should already be a head coach, but he did a hell of a job kind of corralling those three aspects, which were obviously what they needed to do. I don't know if I went on too much of a tangent there.
No. Perfect. I mean, how great is it though that 3 weeks in we're saying Puka Nacua 5 catches, 72 yards, coming back down to earth. Like anyone would have said that. Everyone would have taken that like, yeah, hands down. That's a fantastic game. So okay, let's shift this now for the last little bit we talk, and let's look at some positives. Me and you are upbeat, glass half full guys. I like to think this is the Rams skinny. We like to have a skinny glass of margarita, or what are you drinking over there? You got whiskey, I saw. What are you drinking? What is that?
Yeah, this is a Old Tub. It's a Jim Beam product, actually, discontinued. So it's a great deal at Top Line Wine in Glendale, California, if you're in the area.
Look at that Old Tub. I got Evan Williams, even cheaper than Old Tub. But hey, so let's talk some positives now. Rams fall to 1-2, 19-16, tough loss, abandon the run, yada yada yada. But what did you see that you liked about this game? Because I think there were some good things to take out of it. I think these guys yet again played their asses off. I think that's been the big storyline of this team so far is, yeah, they're a youthful team. Yeah, they're an inexperienced team. Yeah, they might be out talented, but so far we have not seen them outplayed in terms of just pure work ethic. I mean, this team has driven every single game. And that is what I will credit Sean McVay, as I always will, is like these guys are prepared. they're balling out, they're fighting for each other and all that, which is great. So give me some things that you saw that you were bullish on or positive from this tough loss.
Yeah, I think that the secondary in particular, but I think the defense across the board just plays with their hair on fire. I think that they're flying around, they're making plays. Sometimes they're making athletic plays that maybe necessarily shouldn't be athletic plays, but they're giving 110% on every play, and that's making a huge difference in these games.
Yeah.
So I think that all of that coaching staff on the defensive side, Aubrey Pleasant's back, Jimmy Lake addition,
Yep.
Raheem Morris can't sing his praises enough. They're doing the right things with the guys that they have out there. They're making mistakes, they're causing some penalties here and there, but I think that yet again they've proved that they are a professional football defense, which is not something that anybody was talking about. They were like, who's Russ Yeast? Like, Russ Yeast, my new catchphrase for him is he's kneading dough out there.
Love it. Love
Yeah,
it. That's a
whatever.
shirt somewhere right there. Well, I just, but before you get to your next, positives, I just want to reiterate, like, I know Raheem Morris among Rams fans is, for whatever reason, like, I don't want to say a contentious name, but like a very mixed bag of positive or negative reviews for Raheem Morris. And I think 3 weeks in, yes, this team is 1-2. Yes, they gave up 30 to San Francisco, like, shocker. But I think most fans, if they aren't willing to admit it, then they're just hating. Like, you have to realize how good of a coach Raheem Morris is. Seeing the unit he has, the youth he has, and outside of pretty much Aaron Donald, Ernest Jones, and Jordan Fuller, it is a brand new starting unit, primarily from top to bottom. So the fact that he's keeping these in games, 19 points to Joe Burrow and the Bengals, completely shutting out and shutting down the Seahawks in the second half in week 1, and arguably containing San Francisco in week 2. So I just, hats off to Raheem Morris. I think he's a phenomenal coach and a great defensive coordinator, and he deserves respect, I think, from Rams fans, which, he hasn't necessarily gotten a lot, which I don't agree with, but fans, you can have whatever opinion you want. That's what you're allowed to do. I just think he's shown what a good coach he is based on the talent he has on this roster. But anyway, back to you on positives from this game.
Yeah, I'm going to flip over to the offensive side. I'm going to say Tutu Atwell had himself a nice game, and he continues to
He's a
make.
real receiver. He's a real receiver.
Absolutely. We've seen. I called them big boy catches. Earlier, like maybe last week, and I'm just going to stop calling that. I'm just going to it's exactly what you're saying. Like, not only is a real receiver who can make plays over the middle, hang on to the ball, not get knocked around, not get injured, but that kind of sweep play around the end, man, I think that was the first time that I can say that we've seen him at full speed in his career so far, and he was moving fast. I mean, I think he dove from, like, that was like a Jordan from the foul, the foul line dunk that he tried to make towards the end zone. That was incredible, and he was moving along there. And I'm looking forward to next gen stats. I want to see exactly what the miles per hour on that were, because I don't know what it was, but he was looking fast on that. So, Cam Akers just traded, busted draft pick. Let's just say that. Tutu Atwell has been talked about as a busted draft pick for a long time. Mm-hmm. Not today, not last week, not the week before that. So I'm excited. What I'm excited to see is Puka Nacua healthy, Tutu Atwell, Cooper Kupp healthy in there. Also, some more resurgent Van Jefferson. See what that quad can do for this offense, and that's exciting.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What about you? What are your optimistic takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm overall opposite just the way this team battled. The culture's right with this team. I think we didn't see that necessarily last year, and you could blame injuries or a number of things for last year, but I think that the culture's sound this year. Yeah, they fall to 1-2, and we were very optimistic going into this game that they were strangely enough, the better team, especially with a banged up Joe Burrow. I thought they could get after him on the defensive line. They weren't really able to interrupt him too much. I thought, kudos to Zach Taylor for getting the ball out of Joe Burrow's hand very quickly. I mean, Joe Burrow, we didn't really talk about this in the preview, but I guess has been known for having a very quick release, one of the tops in the NFL, and getting the ball out quickly. And they definitely leaned into that in this one to alleviate the pass rush. And the Rams got home a couple times with Aaron Donald and Byron Young with half a sack there. But I just think the way this team battled is a big positive. And an away game, tough place to play at I don't think it's called Paul Brown Stadium anymore. What is it? Paycor Stadium I saw?
Paycor. Yeah, that's the one.
Paycor Stadium, but tough environment. And they were in the game the whole time. They were battling. I think Stafford, didn't have his best game. Obviously 2 interceptions in this one, got the 1 touchdown late, but he just showed his toughness, sacked 6 times, as you mentioned, and was hurt a lot more. And there were some missed throws there and whatnot, but at least he showed his mental toughness, showed his physical toughness. And this team obviously, knows who their leader is and rallied around him. So, for me, the big positive out of this one was more of a invisible positive, if you will. There wasn't a huge
intangible.
Intangible. There you go. There wasn't a huge leap forward in what I saw on the field. There wasn't a huge leap backward on what I saw on the field. There's more of, in terms of positivity, it was just like, okay, we know this team is built to last in every game. Like, will they win 8, 9, 10 games? That's to be seen now. We're 1-2. But will they be in every single game, regardless of the opponent? I think we can say through 3 weeks, yes. Like, I don't care who you put out against this Rams team. They're going to battle and they're going to be competitive every one, which they weren't last year. So I think that is a huge improvement. And that is kind of what a lot of people wanted to see this team do. And then now it's just making those little adjustments to where those battles and that culture and that drive to win turns into wins. And that probably starts with the running game, but I want to get back into that after we spent 20 minutes.
Yeah, no. And that's the biggest reason I've been critical tonight, focusing kind of on the negatives. Is this is one that they should have got, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Dante Brown, I can see why Cam could have wanted to leave. McVay will not run the ball. Yeah, I think we can't really harp on it anymore. They're heading to Indianapolis. That'll be an interesting matchup, whether Anthony Richardson plays or not. We'll get more into that. But yeah, I think my big takeaway is that this team is not the tanking team that some people thought it was going to be. It's not the team full of nobodies that people thought that they were going to be. And these are kind of the games that happen with this kind of team where, there's no Jalen Ramsey. But I was thinking about it, like you mentioned Ernest Jones and Jordan Fuller. Those guys are not high draft picks.
3 and 6.
Yeah, and they're really good players. And
great culture guys, great leaders. Yeah.
It's impressive. That's all I have to say about that, as Forrest Gump likes to say. This is here's a reassurance, Rams fans. You're following an incredible franchise who's smart, does the right things. Last couple of years, last year and this year are going to be tough pills to swallow, but at least you're not the Chicago Cubs, as I used to say.
Yeah, or the Chicago Bears now. I mean, they're the Chicago Cubs. I mean, the Bears are, yeah, thank God you're not that. Like, if Sean McVay was, and this is what, maybe this is a poor comparison, but if you're dating someone and you've got like the perfect girl, right? Like all the things, the looks, she's great with your family, she's fun, she wants to watch football on Sundays, like all these great things. But she loves to shop. Like, that's the one downside, right? And you have to live with that. And that's kind of Sean McVay with not running the football. It's just that one thing. Like, all these things are great. Like, he's a culture guy. He's a leader. He knows offense. He can run a great scheme. Just doesn't want to run the football. It's like that one little thing you got to accept that we've seen now. And can you buck that trend? Well, we haven't seen it in a few years. We'll see if he does. The last question, though, I do want to ask you, Skinny T, before we wrap this up. Are you surprised at all that Ben Skoranek has not been more involved in the offense? Here's a guy that, in the Super Bowl season, because the Rams were just down, no Robert Woods, OBJ got injured, had significant plays in the Super Bowl. And then here we are with a team that, doesn't have any name recognition at receiver. Obviously, Puka Nacua has been fantastic. Tutu Atwell, as we've talked about, has been fantastic. But Ben Skoranek really has not been involved almost whatsoever in this offense. Does that surprise you at all, or is it more of just other guys stepping up?
I'm of a few different thought patterns for this, and I obviously have no idea what they're thinking over there in Rams land, but a couple things come to mind. Is he should be getting more. He bit the bullet and went into battle last year, did everything this team asked, was one of the few bright shining spots. So they should find some things for him to do. They should. I mean, I think they owe him some playing time. So but on the other hand, you have to earn your playing time on this team, especially in the wide receiver room. They brought in Tyler Johnson. They brought in Demarcus Robinson. Those guys aren't even getting playing time. And in some ways, those guys are probably more accomplished. Well, certainly Demarcus Robinson is more accomplished receiver. Hey, they all have Super Bowl rings, so what do I know?
Yeah, fair.
So yeah, I think that his particular physicality, I think, is something that this team could use. That I think that's my last thought on that whole thing. Your mind's churning on a little bit more than mine.
No, I just think it's interesting that, I think the reason he was, I don't want to say kept on this roster, but the reason why he was given a 53-man roster spot, like a starting spot, was for his versatility. And, we talked through the offseason was his versatility, his jack of all trades, going to cost him a roster spot? Like maybe they would go for having more specific style receivers. You have these tight ends, you have your running backs, and he kind of fit into all three of those, but was he good enough to make the roster? And clearly he was. And yet then they're not using him at all, whether that be like last year where they line him up at fullback or tight end or whatever it may be. And so I'm curious if they've changed their kind of thought process and what he can be in this offense, or if they don't see a fit, or maybe it's just Stafford's, looking the other way and like he's just fallen in love with Tutu and Puka Nacua, and that's kind of what this offense is going to be until Cooper Kupp gets back and whatnot. And I'm not saying that's the wrong thing, because obviously those guys have played fantastic, but it just gives you another layer to this offense when you have that versatility that Skoranek gives you. You have the versatility that Kyren Williams gives you, and yet this offense has just looked so one-dimensional I wouldn't even say these last 3 weeks, but this particular game against the Bengals, so they just look so one-dimensional. And so you have these different varieties of skill sets with these different players that I would love to see Coach McVay, with his genius, utilize them in a way that can be fun and innovative and push this offense forward, instead of just dropping back 40 times and telling Stafford to hit a dig route or a crosser route. Like that's all I'm curious about.
Yeah, two thoughts on that just real quick. Like, Stafford does have a tendency to find his guy. Obviously Cooper Kupp has been that in the past, and then now Puka Nacua is that. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. That's a fun sentence to say there. Just those two names back to back. It's a mouthful that feels good.
It flows easy. Like like Puka Cup and Cooper Nakua. Like they both just flow easy. If you just switch the
Yeah,
names, even.
and I had to like pause for just a millisecond in my brain to like make sure I was saying the right name. Cooper Cup and Puka Nakua. You know, he finds his guys and kind of doesn't deviate from that. As of last week, anyway, around 40% of the targets were going to Puka Nakua. Last year it was 33%, which
Well,
has got to
and
be.
I don't want to cut you off, but I'm going to. Even last year, remember, after Stafford was traded here, like Robert Woods was non-existent. That was a big conversation. Is he going to throw the ball to Robert Woods? So anyway, just bring that up, but continue on.
Yeah, and so that happens. But I also think that one of the things that has always been a staple of the McVay offense is you trot the same guys out there. It's the illusion of complexity, as he always likes to call it. You never know what those guys are going to do because they always show up in the same formation. They move them around in a couple of different spots and run a whole bunch of different plays out of them. And so, um, like I think to your point, I think it would be worth it to, mix it up a little bit at this point and say, what is Demarcus Robinson going to do out there? What is, Ben Skoranek going to do out there when they're on there? And the defense has got to be guessing at that, especially with a guy like Ben Skoranek, just because you can put him in the backfield, shift him out to the side, do that San Francisco thing. And, we saw that with Jamar Chase too tonight. He was in the backfield, he was in the slot. They moved him around a whole bunch. So, maybe that's the ace in the sleeve that McVay has. Hopefully, we've seen him take a dip kind of as we head through October into November in previous seasons. So hopefully he's got some more cards up his sleeve. So maybe Skoranek is one of the cards.
Yeah, we'll see if that shifts. So, well, with that being said, I know this was a more downer live, obviously coming out of a loss, 19-16. But I think I still feel confident this Rams team is light years ahead of where everyone thought they were this offseason. And, this was a game, unfortunately, I think got away from them. I think they should have won. I think they played good enough in most facets of this game to win and escape Cincinnati 2-1 and going into Indianapolis, a team that, I think has surprised people as well, but they could have surprised as well and gone to 3-1. But, we'll try to fight back to 500. I still feel good about where this team is overall, and we'll see kind of how they improve. So, Skinny, any other final thoughts before we wrap up here?
Just want to say next 3 games, Indy, Eagles, Cardinals, you can come out of that 3-2. Definitely.
Yeah, no, I think so. And, the
Back on the
Cardinals are playing hard for John Gannon, and they got that big win against the Cowboys, but we know Sean McVay's owned the Cardinals as his entire career, so hopefully that's a good one. But anyway, we're not going to get ahead to that. Tough loss in Cincy. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Still a lot of positives around this team. We'll be back later in the week, obviously, talking more Rams football, talking Rams Colts coming up. One of our favorite venues in all of the NFL at Lucas Oil. And we got to spend some
slippery
good time
noodle,
with the
baby.
combine. The slippery noodle. So we'll talk some stories about Indianapolis and plenty more on the LA Football Network with your Rams coverage. So thank you all for hanging out with us. This is the Rams Skinny for Ryan Skinny T. Anderson. I'm Ryan Dowd. Everyone have a great evening. We'll talk to you all soon.